Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 365. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today, I'm going to talk about the simplicity of life. Keeping life simple now that we're coming out of lockdown, or at least that's how it feels in the UK. This has been a topic that I've been wanting to touch on for a few weeks now because I really enjoyed the simplicity of life that I experienced under lockdown. And I originally wanted to have this conversation with Joanna Hennon, who I do a lot of episodes with. And when I put forward the topic to her, she said, I really can't talk about that with you because my life has been more complicated during lockdown. She had to do homeschooling and other things. So I realized that, of course, my experience is not the experience of everyone. Obviously, especially people with children have had to homeschool. Life has been very, very different. And I know it hasn't been simpler for everyone, but it has for me and it has been for a lot of people that I know. And I really feel like this time during lockdown has been kind of a liminal space, almost like, I don't know, when you do a long distance trail and you're in this kind of universe away from your normal life. Except, my life was going on as usual. I was doing the same things. It was just simpler and easier in a way. And there were fewer options. And I got used to that. And now things are starting to open up. There are more options in life. A lot of the courses that I had signed up for that were supposed to start way back in April are starting now. Dates have changed. I've had to rearrange some things in my schedule. Then on Sunday, I got a text that kickboxing classes were starting again. And I was like, oh, shit, now I have another thing to fit in my calendar. And I really was looking forward to that, but yet have booked things into my calendar to the point where I didn't have those spaces saved anymore. So I've been kind of scrambling around with my calendar, rearranging things, trying to make sure that I can fit in the things that are important to me as more options become available, as we come out of lockdown. And I'm also mindful of the fact that I really want to keep that simple feeling going. I think a lot of us have the tendency to overcomplicate our lives, and I think a lot of us have been on that quest for simplicity. So I thought this might be a useful thing to talk about now. And as always, this episode is as much for me as it is for you because this is something that I'm going through right now. So I hope that you find this interesting and useful because I think a lot of us are going to be experiencing this. So simplicity, what does it mean? Simplicity is the quality or condition of being plain or uncomplicated in form or design. So it's having a simple lifestyle is an uncomplicated lifestyle. And I think that's probably the easiest way to define it. I think we all know what simplicity looks like and feels like in terms of lifestyle. I think most of us have probably had a simple lifestyle at some point in our lives, if not now and if not during COVID. So why is simplicity important? Why is living a simple life good? Why is it useful to seek a simple lifestyle? I think there are a number of reasons. Having a simple lifestyle will give us more time. It will give us less stress. It will release some of the stress from our lives. It will help us to avoid overwhelm. I know that there are so many things that I want to do in life and so many things that I want to learn. I don't overbook, but I often fill up my calendar with things because I just don't have enough time to do all the exciting things that I want to do. Between courses that I want to take and workshops I want to take and workation weekends that I want to take to focus on my writing. And regular client work and just all kinds of stuff. So I am very much guilty of, again, not overbooking because there is a part of me that is really precious about my time and really mindful of how I choose my time and how I book things in, but at the same time, wanting to do so many things. And next week, Joanna Hennon and I have an episode on midlife, talking about being at that halfway point in our lives. I'm going to be 47 next week, the day after this comes out. And I'm very much aware of the fact that I'm probably halfway through my life, could die tomorrow. And time is running out. There's a part of me that's really feeling like time is running out. And there are all these things that I've always wanted to do. I don't really have a formal bucket list, but I have this list of things that I want to do and things I want to learn, and I want to do them. And time is running out. And so I think that's one of the things that also makes me feel like I've got to do stuff. I've got to do all the things I want to do, and I've got to be very mindful about how I spend my time. Because I wasn't necessarily mindful about how I spent the first 35 years of my life. So again, simplicity. Why is it important? It gives us more time, can help us reduce our stress, and it can help us to avoid overwhelm by making us mindful about how we spend our time, what things we book into our calendar. And it can make it easier to find meaning in life. I mean, it has taken me years to find my thing. And I've had many things along the way, and I've tried out many things, and they've all been very fulfilling, but they weren't really the thing. And I really feel like I've got the thing now, which is helping people achieve personal growth through nature. Helping people to get outdoors and learn how to get outdoors and connect with nature to connect with themselves and thus have a better life. But that required time and space to find and to get clarity on that. And it required me making the right decisions in my life. And it required me to prioritize the things that I love, which is doing more outdoor stuff. And through doing the stuff that I love, being able to see this clarity. I think simplicity is important because it makes it easier to see the purpose in what we do. And to see what are the things that don't fit into that purpose. So you may or may not believe in the concept of life purpose. But as I said earlier, meaning, like we all know which things are meaningful to us, which things are fulfilling to us. If you don't know, you can find it through making better choices about what you do and making better decisions about how you spend your time. And thus, at some point, sometimes it takes a few years, seeing the purpose to what we do and finding that meaning in life and filling our lives with fulfilling stuff. I think simplicity is important because it makes it easier for us to make decisions and to see the priorities in life and to focus on the important things. So one of the ways to achieve simplicity is to focus on our priorities, but sometimes that's really hard. And I think it's a process, and our priorities will, of course, change throughout life. They might change throughout the year. Different things are important at different times, at different stages in our lives, at different stages in the year. But I think the more that we kind of reprogram our minds to focus on those priorities, the more we will see what our true priorities are. And I've blogged about priorities a lot in the past when I looked at the 3 questions, who am I, and where am I going, which are what I call the 3 questions of self-knowledge. So I will find some of those, or I'll find the best one and I'll link to it in the show notes. Because I think knowing what our priorities are is really, really important. And again, keeping our lives simple allows us to see what the priorities are. Living a life of simplicity or focusing on simplicity, making simplicity important, also gives us a sense of freedom because it frees up time in our calendar. If you're saying yes to everything that everyone proposes to you without being discerning and without focusing on priorities, it's easy to get overwhelmed. It's easy to fill up your calendar with stuff that is not necessarily fulfilling. So by doing the opposite of that and making simplicity a priority, it gives you a sense of freedom because you'll have the freedom and the space and the time in your calendar to choose the things that are really important to you. And when you do that, you know yourself better. So I think simplicity is also important because it makes it easier for you to know yourself because you start to make conscious decisions about what you want to do. And you start to make conscious decisions about how you want to spend your time because our time on earth is limited. We don't know how long it's going to be. Like I said, I think I'm at the midlife point of my life, but could die next week. We don't know. So it's very, very important for me now to consciously choose how I'm going to spend my time and to focus on doing fulfilling things and things that I enjoy and things that make me happy. And I'm also aware as I say this that because I don't have children, I have a lot more time and energy and probably money than people that do have kids, or some people that do have kids. But we all have pockets that we can rearrange. So even if you're listening to this and you think, oh my God, I've got 4 kids, how can I do this? I don't have any personal time. I don't know. Start with 5 minutes. and spend 5 minutes doing something that's important to you, even if it's like reading part of a chapter in a book, a page in a book, I don't know, whatever. Like, start with something. We always have a little bit of time in our schedule, even if it's 5 minutes. And I say this because, again, I had read this review of my book, How to Add More Adventure to Your Life. And the person said something like, I can't do any of the things because I don't have time. And one of the suggestions was something as simple as just eat something different for dinner. That's so easy to get caught up in this story that we tell ourselves that we don't have time. And I think that's why it's important to keep life simple, because we really do if we choose to spend our time differently. But it's about making conscious decisions about how we spend our time. Simplicity is important because it gives us more free time and more time to do the important things, the things that are really important to us. And simplicity is important because it can help us be more productive, and it can help us hone our productivity muscle and get better at being efficient in doing the things that we need to do so that we can free up time to do the things that we want to do. So simplicity, a simple life is going to look different for everyone. What I see to be a simple life is not the same as what someone else would see to be a simple life. So the important thing is to figure out what that looks like to you. So how to keep life simple? First of all, get clear on what that looks like to you. What does a simple life look like to you? What would that feel like? What does it sound like? What does it look like? Like, what would your schedule look like? What does your calendar look like if it's a simple calendar? What would you be doing during the day? What would you not be doing during the day? It's really, really important to get clear on what simplicity looks like to you. And then identify the complications. Like, what are the things in your life that you're currently experiencing that are creating all this complication and preventing you from living a simple life? Can you remove these things? If you can, work to remove them. And obviously some things you can't. If you've got children, you can't just give them away to a family member for a few months at a time. I'm very much aware of that, but perhaps you can change the way you do things to free up some time. And I'm really sorry if all of my examples of complicated life involve children, but honestly, I don't think I could function with children. So to me, like, that's kind of sounds horrible as I say it, but children are very much a symbol of complicated life, because I think because of my autism or my Asperger's, I would be in a constant state of meltdown if I had that level of responsibility in my life. So that's why I'm saying this. I am very much aware that children are a normal thing for most people, but not for me. So how else to keep life simple? So get clear on what a simple life looks like to you, identify the complications. If you can remove them, do so, and then declutter other things. I've talked about this before, but decluttering is such a great way to simplify so many things. It's like when you take a step outside of your comfort zone in one area of your life, it stretches it in all other areas of your life. So if you declutter your clothes, your home, your office, of physical stuff, and you take a bunch of stuff down to the charity shops now that they're starting to open after lockdown, that can help you declutter other things. It can help make it easier for you to declutter your mind. It can help make it easier for you to declutter your calendar, your inbox, and other things that are complicating your life. And when you look at your calendar for the next month, the next week, the next quarter, the next whatever, be very mindful of what you say yes to and give yourself permission to say no to things. Decluttering is really, really, really powerful. I'm going to say that again. Another thing you can do is to create systems, batch tasks. I've got episodes where I talk about time management. I've got blog posts where I talk about time management. Time management used to be a really big thing for me, and productivity. And I really feel like doing really well in that area. But if you feel like productivity and time management is perhaps something that you're still struggling with, then read up on it and try some new techniques that might help you improve your time management. I did an episode years ago, or a couple years ago, with Amber de la Garza, and she has a podcast called Productivity Straight Talk, I think it is. I will link to that in the show notes, but she has an excellent podcast on time management. So that's something you could listen to. Improving time management is so, so important because it really helps free up time for you to do other things, to not only get done all the things you need to do, but have time for all the things that you really, really want to do, but perhaps don't have time. And creating systems really, really helps. Create checklists for the things that you have to do every week. So every week when this podcast episode goes live, I have a checklist of all the things I need to do. I share it to Instagram. I share it on Patreon. I share it here. I share it there. I set it up in Edgar so it can keep going out on my social network. I have systems, and that makes it so much faster and so much easier and so much more efficient because I just go through the checklist. Whereas before it was like, I have to do all this stuff. The podcast went live. I have to share it places. I don't know where. So having checklists makes it really, really easy. Plan your weeks. So I talk a lot about Google Calendar. We all know what that is. I use it religiously. Like I really, really love Google Calendar. But every week, either Sunday, probably not Sunday because I try to stay off the computer on Sundays, but like Monday morning, I'll look at the week. I will drag and drop things. I will see what I need to do, see what extra time I have, see what stuff I can't fit in, and move stuff around to make sure that the important stuff gets done, the high priority stuff gets done. And I kind of have that week at a glance planning moment. But I plan everything in my calendar. I have meals blocked out there. I have exercise blocked out. Like everything that you do in your day, put it in there because that's stuff that takes up time. And really be honest about how long it takes you to do stuff. I was having a conversation with a friend a while back, and she said, I never seem to have time to record my half-hour podcast episodes. And I said, well, you need to block them off in the calendar. And she said, oh, yeah, I guess I could just block off, a half hour here and there. And I said, no, it takes more than that. I mean, for every half-hour podcast episode that I record, I block out 2 hours in my calendar because I've got to research it. I've got to think about it. I've got to type up my bullet points. I've got to type up the show notes. I've got to create the graphics. Got to send all the stuff to my podcast guy. It takes me usually 2 hours. Sometimes it takes me less, but I always block out 2 hours for a half-hour episode. So be honest with yourself about how long it actually takes you to do something because it's a lot harder to find 2 hours in your calendar to do something than it is to find a half an hour. And if you think something's taking you a half an hour, but it's really not, that's probably why it's not getting done because it's really not taking a half an hour. So that will also help you plan your weeks appropriately and make sure that you have enough time to do all the things you want to do. So how else to keep life simple? A lot of people are a fan of like clothing uniforms, like having a basic clothing outfit that you wear every day of the week, obviously with multiple copies of it. And I tend to have kind of different clothing uniforms per season. Like in the winter, I'll wear jeans and a sweater. And in the summer, I wear a t-shirt and harem pants. And I have different things for different seasons. But it's really easy because every day I get up, I have like a matching, like now it's summer, I've got matching harem pants and t-shirts and I have them paired up in my drawers, just grab one set for tomorrow and I put it on. And then it gets washed and it goes back in the system. But having clothing uniforms can be really, really helpful. I don't know about you, but I used to spend hours debating what to wear. And this was years and years and years ago. And it was just so much wasted time. So it's so much easier to just have kind of set outfits that you can just grab and put on and go. So that's one way to keep life simple. And this is something I developed over time, just figuring out what kinds of things I like to wear in each season of the year and just buying stuff like that. Like if I find a top I like, I'll buy it in 5 different colors because that just makes it easier. Food, meals. A lot of people will recommend meal planning and like cooking a ton of meals on Sunday and like packaging them up so you can eat them throughout the week. I'm not a fan of that, but I am a fan of intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting has been a really important life-changing thing for me in many different ways. It's given me energy, it's helped me to lose some weight, and it's been absolutely life-changing, especially in like the energy and focus area. But it's also helped to make my life more simple because before I would eat 3 meals a day. I was always worrying about like, oh, what am I going to eat for dinner? What am I going to eat for lunch? And then like lunch would come around and I'd be starving and I'd be like, I haven't planned for lunch. Now I have to like stop everything and interrupt myself and what am I going to do? And it was a pain. And I often found myself like grabbing foods that weren't the best foods for my body just because I wanted to like stuff something in my mouth to tick the box and say, oh, I've had that meal. Let's move on. So that wasn't good. So now I find that I'm eating more mindfully. I find that I'm choosing the foods that I know my body likes because I'm eating fewer meals by doing intermittent fasting. So I know this isn't for everyone. Consult your doctor before starting a new lifestyle eating habit. But intermittent fasting can be a really great way of simplifying your life. I usually do alternate day fasting, which means that I have 2 meals every other day. Sometimes I'll do 1 meal a day. But I'm not ever doing 3 meals a day. So this has freed up time in my calendar. I have to spend less time cooking. I spend less time planning meals, I spend less time thinking about food, and I spend less time eating. So whereas before I used to block out like 3 hours a day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, now it's like 2 meals every other day. So there are some days where I don't eat at all, and I have so much more time. Again, this is not the right solution for everyone, but oh my God, it's really simplified things. And as I said, it's made me a lot more mindful about what I eat and when I eat. So that could be something that could help you simplify your life. So as we are coming out of lockdown, and of course this is going to be different in all parts of the world. I know everyone's at different places. So where you are right now, you might not yet be coming out of lockdown, but keep this stuff in mind for when you do. Be mindful of the choices you make. Don't feel like, okay, we're coming out of lockdown, so I automatically have to go back to life the way it was before lockdown. No, you can choose something different. You can choose different ways of doing things. You can choose a different lifestyle. You can choose to make different decisions. So as more choices become available to you, be mindful about the choices you are making. Be mindful about the stuff that you sign up for. Be mindful about the stuff that you say yes to. And give yourself permission to say no to things that are not a high priority for you. Give yourself permission to say no to things that don't bring you joy, that are not what you want to spend your time and money on. Because time is precious. Time is a limited resource. And I think the more mindful we are about how we spend our time, the happier we're going to be. So, as more choices become available, be mindful of what choices you're making for yourself. I hope you found this interesting and useful, and I hope this helps you wherever you are in the world as you come out of lockdown, whether that's now or in the future. So, thank you so much for listening. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought about this week's episode. You can email me at holly@hollyworton.com or find me online and get in touch there. Thank you, as always, for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would mean the world to me, and it would help get this podcast seen by more people who might be interested. Next week, as I said, I will be back with Joanna Hedden. We are talking about midlife. We ask the questions. When is midlife? What is it? What does it look like? How does it feel? And how to use midlife as kind of a catalyst to reevaluate where you are and where you want to go in life. So also how to know when it's time to reevaluate, because it doesn't necessarily have to be at midlife when you reevaluate where you are and where you want to go. We talk about what to do when you look at your life and you wonder, whose life am I living? And we discuss how to be happy when you're in that place of dissatisfaction. So, hope you found this episode interesting and useful. Remember to visit hollywharton.com/365 for the show notes on this episode. And if you are the kind of person who likes podcast transcripts, you can head over to that link in 2 weeks' time and the transcripts will be up there. Thank you for listening and have a fantastic week. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.